Good Tuesday evening, everybody. It's Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. We are now Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. Welcome to Live Weather Impact tonight. And boy, we've had a great stretch of weather. Today was gorgeous. Yesterday was gorgeous. And honestly, the next couple of days aren't going to be horrible. They're just not going to be as sunny as what we had today. That would probably be the biggest change that we're going to see over the next few days. It's still going to be warm, if not warmer than we've seen, but the sunshine won't be as abundant. We started to see some of that today, and we'll take a look at our High Brighton Mountain camera. I love this camera because we're looking back towards the Blue Ridge. Just a beautiful view. The sun set already. It's set at 6:08 this evening, but we still got plenty of twilight. Remember, you get a good 30, 40 minutes of twilight after sunset and before sunrise, so you get these great golden hours setting up here, and just a great evening out there. But what's happened today is, we had full sun for most of the day, and then probably starting around 4 or 5 o'clock, we started to see this high cloud deck move in from the northwest, and it's visible on our satellite imagery. You can see almost all of that cloud cover coming in. It's all mid and high level clouds, so it's really not rain clouds or anything like that, but it will serve as a blanket to trap some of the warmth that we had today, which was pretty plentiful. We've got 60s out there, really warm air to the west. We're going to talk about what's going on in the plains. Big windstorm out there and wildfires everywhere. There's evacuations going on coming up in a few minutes. Tim and I will talk about what's going on out there. It's a crazy weather pattern out west. They're getting snow, rain, and wind. And that's now moving into the plains. But our temperatures, look how warm it is. And also look at that south wind. Southerly winds continue to pump in the warm air. With the cloud cover over us tonight, that will trap the warmth we had today. So you're looking at temperatures maybe not falling out of the 50s. That's near our average high. And that could be our low temperature overnight. So when you're starting the day that warm, you're certainly going to get pretty toasty. Now, the high temperature day was 65. That was even with the late day clouds. But look at the morning low. We were down in the upper 30s, which is close to average. But today definitely was warmer than average overall, especially for that afternoon high. So the overnight lows only going about 51, but I wouldn't be shocked to see low to mid 50s where the clouds stay a little thicker. If we see some thinning, then you can clear it out. And look at tomorrow. Even with mostly cloudy skies, I imagine we're still going to be close to 70, if not low 70s. And part of the reason you can be so warm tomorrow is, one, we have southwest winds. Look at them, 14 miles per hour. But also, the fact that we're starting in the low 50s takes very little time for it to warm up. So I would expect it to be a pretty mild day. Now, we need rain. We talked about this, Tim and I, probably way too much over the last couple of weeks. And we got the rain Sunday, which was great. That actually has given us the smallest deficit for a month since the surplus last August. So it was substantial, but we're still slightly behind, and I do expect we're going to stay there until we see substantial rain. So that leads to not only dry conditions with the pollen. If you're an allergy sufferer, this is not going to be a surprise. We're starting to see tree pollen, but the southwest wind, not only does it stir up our local pollen, it brings pollen in from areas like Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, Florida, areas where the trees are way ahead of where we are up here in the Piedmont of North Carolina. So we're getting some of that pollen from our southwestern areas, and that's going to continue. So that's why the pollen levels actually go up the next couple of days. And the rain chances, they're there. They're just not widespread. I would not count on there being substantial rainfall, and we'll kind of go hour by hour here with our future cast. Mostly cloudy tomorrow, so don't expect a ton of sun. A break here and there, certainly possible. Dry for the most part, but tomorrow night into Thursday, you see a couple isolated showers, but it's really not that much. And then Friday's an interesting day because a cold front approaches, and it might kick off a few more substantial showers or even a thunderstorm. That certainly could be possible early in the day. I'm kind of doubting that's going to come through that quickly. It could get hung up for a while, but either way, Friday's looking like a pretty warm day with the best chance of rain, or at least the highest chance. Doesn't mean it's the heaviest, because when we look at the rainfall totals, it's not much to write home about. I mean, you're talking less than a quarter of an inch just about everywhere. We need an inch plus per week just to maintain, steady levels of rainfall. We need more than that to get rid of the drought. So that's not going to cut it, but it's something, right? And so when we look at our forecast the next 3 days, pretty warm. I think that's the theme, but also pretty cloudy. A lot of clouds. More than sun, but with the southwest wind and any breaks at all, that's certainly still going to get us well into the 60s and 70s. I think Friday, if we see sun, outside chance we get close to 80. Certainly not out of the realm a possibility. When we look at this temperature trend over the next 7 days, it's predominantly warm, and that leads a lot of people to say, hey, are we done with winter? This was the last 7 days, by the way, just to give you an idea where we're coming from. So, pretty warm stretch of weather there. But what's interesting is going into the next 7 days, we start to see an even warmer pattern, and then people think, okay, we're done with winter. But look at early next week. That'll be a wake-up call. It's still not over. We tend to have winter chances all the way through the middle of March. So until we get there, you can't write winter off. And spring in general is a wild time of year. I think a lot of times people think it's one consistent temperature. Not a big fan of spring-like or fall-like, because spring and fall are transition seasons. You tend to see a little bit of everything. So it can be very warm like it is this week, and it can get cold like it is early next week. And that is exactly normal for spring. It's a very diverse time of year, in particular March, which is a wild month. So just be prepared. We are not going to see some steady state of temperatures. We kind of see things kind of level off a little bit by April, but March is probably, to me, one of the wildest weather months we have in the Carolinas. You literally could get severe weather in 80s, and you could get a snowstorm. That is pretty much March in a nutshell. So this weekend, unlike last weekend, we had a bad Sunday. This weekend, it looks like it's going to be a bad Saturday with a better Sunday. I wouldn't even think Saturday is going to be all that bad. Right now, looking at maybe a 60% chance of morning showers kind of clearing out, and then turning much cooler as we go into Sunday. And that Sunday time frame, that is actually when we start to see the beginning of what looks to be a pretty substantial cool down for early next week. And we kind of alluded to this in our temperature forecast, but let's show you our Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day. Pretty warm Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You're seeing those temperatures jump way up into the 70s, close to 80. Scattered to isolated showers. I would not call it widespread because it just doesn't look like a ton of rain. But whenever that front gets here Saturday morning, that might be the best chance. And then look at Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Pretty dramatic cool down, and we'll go 10 days into the future so you get a good long look at this. And you'll notice, temperatures are really chilly, especially for late February next week. We're talking highs mid to upper 40s, which is almost 10 degrees below average, and the morning lows way down in the 20s. So that's a pretty hard freeze for, at least 3 of those mornings, and that's about 10 degrees below average. So that kind of goes to show you Mother Nature just throwing you that wild card out there to say, hey, we're not done with the cold weather just yet, even though we've had some warm weather, and we're about to see a nice stretch of warm weather this week. Next week will be a gentle reminder like, hey, we're not done quite yet. So coming up, Tim Buckley's going to join me from WFMY. We're going to talk about West Coast wild weather. We got to talk about these wildfires. This is a real-time thing. It's like breaking news happening right now. We'll get into that and talk about some other things coming up in about 2 minutes, but stick around and stay right there. All right, welcome back. Tim Buckley joins me as always from WFMY up in the Greensboro area. And Tim, great day today across the Carolinas. I don't think there was a lot of complaining going on. If there was, shame on you, because it was a beautiful day. And it looks like the warm air is going to be sticking around even with the clouds moving in, which is kind of nice.
Nice and warm. Fake spring, can we call it that? At least a little fake warm-up. A real warm-up, but maybe fake spring, I guess. But it is going to stay warm, like you said, Brad. I'm a little nervous up here. You don't need to be, I don't think. But I'm a little nervous about Thursday. We have one of these little backdoor cold fronts that won't touch the Charlotte area. And that's great for you, and I'm happy for you. But up here, we watch that front a little more carefully. I think that Thursday afternoon, we could have some of our northern counties maybe be in the low 60s or even upper 50s, whereas you guys are probably, what do you have it, in the mid-70s or something like that?
Yeah, we're definitely going to have one of those crazy gradients across the Carolinas where we're going to look at the map and go, how is somebody in the 50s and somebody's like 75? That's going to be kind of a weird day. But that's kind of typical for this time of year when we start seeing this cold air. The sun angle's high enough, and with southwest winds, you can get really warm, but there's still a lot of snowpack and cold air to the north that they get a backdoor front like that. I certainly can see that happening, Tim. And the tough part, and this is the toughest part of our job, is like we bust a lot of forecasts this time of year because that literally could be a 20-degree difference depending on what side of the front you're on.
Yeah, it really could. And that's kind of, the messaging right now is just, hey, we know this cooler is going to be around. We know the warmer is going to be around. So the farther north you are, the better chance you are to get impacted by that cooler air. And we'll see where it lands by Thursday and who gets some rain out of it, too. Yeah,
and that's my next question, Tim. It's kind of weird, we've got these rain chances in the forecast, but when I look at the guidance and the QPF, we call it, the amount of precipitation, it doesn't really jump off the map at you. Like, this is not a ton of rain. It looks like kind of really scattered, isolated stuff. I was kind of hoping for a better chance of rain, but there really isn't a day where I would say, it looks like a good rain. It just looks like really scattered right now.
It does look mostly scattered, and I think Thursday for us would be scattered up here, probably mostly dry for you guys, I guess. Yeah. And then that Friday thing, what's interesting to me is, it's the first time in a long time that we might actually have something that resembles a line of rain, even a squall line almost. And
a thunderstorm,
maybe it's not quite that, but maybe you have a little rumble of thunder. I wouldn't totally rule it out, right? On Friday morning, that'll be something interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think that's probably our best chance of rain, too, because while it's not widespread, at least it would be an intense, brief downpour maybe coming in. Yeah, that's a nice little front that tries to sneak in here. And with as warm and as muggy as it will be for this time of year ahead of it, it wouldn't be surprising to see some thunder. It's a really interesting setup. I think I'm always fascinated by this time of year when it warms up, but what more so, I kind of look at the overnight lows. When we see overnight lows like in the 50s, maybe several nights in a row, that's one of those things that really starts to drive some of the plant growth around here when the overnight lows are pretty warm. And that will really give us a warm spell. But it's also going to lead to probably this kind of crazy cool down next week, Tim. I think, for everybody who's asking, are we done with winter? Are we into spring? You look at our 7-day or our 10-day forecast, you immediately know, okay, we're not done. Yeah. we've got more cold air, and that's a pretty sharp cold front next week.
I think so, too. And it's kind of gotten a little more clear the last couple of days that there's no really avoiding that cool down. Like, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But even still, it's probably a short-lived cool down, but a pretty intense one where you'll have some morning lows in the 20s. Just a little random, you and I both like these random stats. This is what keeps me up at night. I say, Tim, I wonder how many below freezing days do we have left this year? And so I had to look this up and see, what do we average? So basically from the 18th of February onward, we average historically about 15 more 32 or colder mornings. But in the last 10 years, we've only had about 9 of those on average. Oh. So the shorter term trend is fewer. But it'll be interesting. There's not that many going forward from here, even though we're still in winter.
Yeah, when things start popping and growing, you start getting the big box stores. They start putting out the plants, and people have that temptation to put the tender stuff in. And, I'm always very cautious. I'm like, you can do it, but just beware. For us, kind of our rule of thumb in Charlotte is kind of wait till tax day, April 15th. About 98% of the time, you're going to be safe if you wait till that. If you want to get a jump start, just be prepared to cover stuff because, we always always have a late freeze, it feels like. Sometime early April, mid-April, there's that one frost freeze day. And,
Sure.
you know, everyone's gung-ho. They hit up their local Lowe's and Home Depot and bought all the plants, and then they're like, uh-oh, I'm going to have to cover everything up.
Yeah, it's always their fault because we always say this basically and not to be rude, but I mean, every year we say don't plant until tax day, don't plant until, and people will still do it, and that's fine. But I do think maybe the risk this year of having crop damage from early peach blossoms, early cherry, whatever, that should be a lower risk than usual, right? Because things shouldn't be that far ahead of schedule right now. At least it doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, and that's actually what's hurt our fruit crop the last couple of years. The apples, the cherries, the peaches was the early warmth, the winter warmth, to be honest with you, that caused everything to bloom so early. And we just got a normal frost and freeze, and it caused widespread damage. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think that actually is going to make us a lot better off. So, Tim, we got to talk about what's going out west. We hit on this yesterday. The West Coast is getting absolutely hammered with storm after storm. There's more rain, more snow. The first storm we were talking about yesterday has kind of moved into the plains, and then the second one has come down. And, boy, we thought yesterday was pretty good for snow. This one actually looks like it might be producing more snow in parts of the Sierra. I know I was checking with some of my friends in the Tahoe Basin, and the Snow Lab, I think, had 27 inches of snow in the last 24 hours, and they're forecasting another 1 to 3 feet, which is insane. But they were excited. They said this was the most snow they've had since in a 2-day period since the February 2023 storm. So really big event for them. But the first storm that came through yesterday, Tim, has moved into the plains, and I hinted at this in my local forecast. We've got basically a firestorm going on in parts of the plains right now. You and I were chatting online, and I've never seen these before, but there's actually fire weather warnings, and it's not like the big warnings. These are like polygons, like you would have severe thunderstorms for individual fires. And Jeb, I don't know if you can see my laptop, but I pulled up our GOES 19 high-res imagery here, and let's see if it shows up. But there, you can see these giant smoke
Looks
plumes.
like Charlotte.
Yeah, let's hope that's not on fire. But you can see these smoke plumes, and Tim, they're showing up really well on the radar right now. And I've seen evacuations like in Woodward, Oklahoma. It's wild out there right now. They have bone dry conditions and 50 to 60 mile per hour winds. I mean, this is there's a lot of emergencies happening right now in parts of the plains.
Yeah, and so you were talking about these fire warning polygons, and it's interesting. It's basically kind of like they're issuing these almost like they would for a severe thunderstorm warning or a tornado warning. Literally the same kind of idea here, but this is news to me too. I haven't noticed this, but if you read the text of this is just one of these set fires. When you read it, it says a dangerous wildfire is located 8 miles east of Beaver, moving rapidly north and east at 3 to 5 miles per hour. So they're literally giving you right now the speed that the fire is moving, which is super interesting. And, you know, to me, I'm an East Coast guy. I've not lived out in the plains or out west. I can't imagine, you know, the scary nature of these fast-moving fires. It's not something I've ever kind of, you know, lived with, but whenever we see these in the news, it does seem like some type of weather that would be really scary to have to kind of be worried about, because these things can go quickly and they can catch up to your homes, and you're not just talking about getting brushed by these. It's usually all or nothing when it comes to destruction, right?
Yeah, you know, we obviously have talked about big wildfires in wooded areas on the West Coast, the mountains in particular, and those are scary enough, Tim, but these are like grassland fires where it's flat and the wind is blowing so hard that the fires just spread so rapidly. I mean, you almost can't outrun these in a car. They're going so fast. So, yeah, these are pretty scary to see. When you look at the imagery, it's like, holy cow, these things are flying across the countryside. And they were under this critical fire danger today, which we don't see very often. But the storm that came into California yesterday, it moved into the plains, and what happens is that wind energy comes off the Rocky Mountains. It sinks the air. It gets really dry, super windy, and it's like just the perfect recipe for wildfires, because not only do you have the wind, but it's bone dry air. You get that downsloping out of the Rockies. And, it really causes, and they are in drought conditions out there as well. It wouldn't matter because they are dormant. They have all the grasslands. If you're not familiar with this part of the country, once you get to like the panhandle of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, that's where most of the wheat in the country has grown, and so when you see this time of year, you just have a lot of dormant, dry vegetation, and that can burn really easily.
And that's something that we've been talking about when we've had our drought considerations here and all the chatter about the lack of rainfall, right? This is something that hasn't happened in the Carolinas, thankfully,
Yes.
and hopefully we can continue to kind of mitigate that by getting this periodic rainfall. But that's the concern, and that's not what you want to have happen. Those kind of winds out there, though, Brad, like you were saying, that's just another level of gusty wind. And, you know, it was forecasted. They put out these fire weather outlooks and watches. I saw it was in the extreme category, basically, for the Denver area today. And so they're always right on the money with these things. Really smart folks that put out these outlooks every single day.
Yeah, so we got the visible imagery, and so this is a cool, I mean, it's cool, but it's scary. So what you're looking at here is this is the GOES 19 mesoscale sector, and what you're looking at is 1 minute data at like 500 meter resolution, and you see that big plume near my cursor. That's one of the bigger fires, and there's actually some pyrocumulus clouds coming off of that as well, which is crazy to think.
Whoa.
So this is only a 42-minute loop, so you could see how quickly those clouds are moving. Imagine the fire moving just as quickly. And you're also seeing a lot of dust there, Tim. We're seeing a whole bunch of that brown is not just smoke, that's a lot of dust. So I'm kind of curious if we're going to see a pretty good dust plume. And speaking of dust, if you go a little further south, look at West Texas, you can actually see it looks like a giant conveyor belt of dust coming through the panhandle of Texas, which is pretty common out there. I have a friend that lives in Lubbock, and he went to Texas Tech for grad school, and he used to say, when you live out there, you just learn not only that you got to be ready for a dust storm at any moment, you learn what the taste of dust is like, because it's always blowing all the time out there. It's just one of the windiest places you could be in the country.
The taste of dust. That's something that I can't say that I've experienced before. And you see these pictures, and now you're showing it on the radar. So at this point, we're probably looking at whether it be the smoke. Would it be picking up on the dust too, or pretty much just the smoke at this point?
That's got to be. It's hard to tell because. So this is, if you're wondering where this is, Dodge City, Kansas radar. We're looking in the Panhandle. That buffalo is in the Panhandle of Oklahoma. That's a pretty bright return for a wildfire. That's, I'll be honest with you. You don't normally see that kind of return. And if you look careful, it looks like maybe multiple fires are now breaking out from that plume, like maybe it's carrying sparks downwind, and we're seeing new fires break out. But I would imagine, Tim, that's probably a combination of dust and smoke kind of all in that column, and so it's given us a pretty bright return. It tells you there's a lot of particles being lofted. If I go down south, there's a big fire in Woodward, Oklahoma. It's a little farther from the radar, so if I switch radar sites, you'll see even in the panhandle of Texas, we've got a bunch of fires burning there. You also can see it is a windy part of the country. There's actually a bunch of wind farms down there. They show up on the radar because the turbines actually create turbulence that shows up on the radar. So if you see something that's not moving, it's usually a wind turbine. But yeah, I mean, the fact that looks like that on radar, that's a scary sight, because you know that's a lot of smoke or dust if it's showing up that well on the radar.
Yeah, that's not a good sign. I got a little camera here pulled up from, well, I don't know where Big Spring, Texas is by heart, but this is somewhere in the Panhandle area. And,
Looks
you know,
dusty.
nothing too dramatic here. We can't position these perfectly, but this is probably what most people out there are experiencing. Like you were saying, Brad, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, all these areas, it just looks super hazy and super dusty. So kind of similar to when we had those Canadian wildfires being such a pest and sending smoke our way. This is different, but it's a similar look to it. Just the dusty side of things, and not so much the fire side, or sorry, the smoke particles instead.
Yeah, so the updated fire weather outlook for today actually extended the extreme outlook from parts of Nebraska, eastern Colorado, western Kansas, all the way down into the Panhandle. So, yeah, this morning that was only for eastern Colorado. They extended it all the way down into the Texas Panhandle. That's about as high a fire outlook as you're going to see, and it's in that area, pretty much all the high plains, the eastern part of the Front Range there. And so, yeah, this is a pretty scary situation. I'm sure we're going to get some images. I've seen a few floating around on X, Tim, of some chasers out there showing some really rapidly spreading fires. And so this is something we'll have to keep an eye on. But it just goes to show you that these systems coming into the West Coast, they mean business.
Yeah, they really do. And a lot of times when we watch these systems, they kind of work their way right across the country. This one, not really so much. The way the flow is right now is it's kind of get carried off a little bit to our north and to the east, right? So a lot of this is kind of missing us farther off to the north, not in a big way for our area. So if you look at the jet stream map, we can kind of usually approximate how these storm systems are moving. You can kind of see how that ridging is happening, all those brighter colors in the plains and in the Great Lakes. That's going to be where these storms kind of track over the next couple of days. So while we have maybe some drizzle or light rain showers on Thursday, by and large, the big weather is going to be missing us to the north. It's not really until the weekend, especially Saturday into Sunday, that we start to see some of that changing. And that's when you start to get into more of that big cool down kind of weather for our area. And not just a cool down, but possibly even some more weekend rain also. So those are all the things that we're going to be tracking there. There is going to be some severe weather as part of this system too. There hasn't really been today, but I know over the next couple of days, they're going to be watching the severe weather chances in places like Ohio and Illinois and Indiana. So this is for Thursday afternoon. As that system kind of makes its way farther up to the north and to the west, they'll be watching for some thunderstorm chances. Now, right now, we're not really expecting anything bad around here, but with that Friday system, it is possible that there could be at least a little bit of thunder. And gosh, I can't even remember the last time I heard thunder around here. So just to recap the futurecast for you, going through tomorrow, whether you're in Charlotte or Greensboro or across North Carolina, it's dry. We just have clouds in the picture. But going into Thursday, that's when you start to see the potential of a little scattered rain, mostly for the Greensboro area and up into Virginia. And then by Friday, that's when we start to see kind of the tailing end of that system I was just showing you. That's that front. And this is what has the potential to maybe bring us a couple of quick rumbles of thunder, certainly at least like a gusty shower or a downpour or two. But when that goes away, get outside. Friday afternoon should be the best time of the week. There's some sunshine. There's some improving weather. It'll be a little gusty, but we'll be in the 70s at that point. Next week, we told you, it's not going to last that long. We will be seeing some cooler weather. So the fake spring will be over. We will be back to winter, at least for a couple of days, until the next warm-up, which will happen sometime next week. This has been your Tuesday edition of Live Weather Impact. Thanks for joining us. Of course, we'll be right back here again tomorrow, and we'll have all that weather info you need. Back to WCNC Plus.